Okay, I think we're live. Hello, welcome to a live Social Selling Sisterhood podcast recording. I am super excited today for you all to meet Tracey. And Tracey, I'm actually trying to think. I think we connected on Instagram. Was it Instagram?
Yes,
Okay,
we
we
found
connected on Instagram. It's so hard to remember my memory
you.
of like where we met.
All the things, all the platforms, all the things. Yeah.
I know. So we met on Instagram, connected, and I'm just really excited for you guys to see what kind of value Tracey's going to bring you and your social selling business. So Tracey, tell us about you. Where are you from? What do you do? And all the things.
Okay. Thank you for having me on, Lindsay. And I love that you have this podcast. It's so important to have a sisterhood of social sellers. So I just love that you're doing this. I live in New York City. So I'm coming to you from the Big Apple, and I've lived here for quite a long time. I actually grew up in Rhode Island, so I moved from a very small town to a very big city, and I've been here since my right after college, where I started in a career in public relations and marketing, um, and so my passions, I've continued to follow my passions. Really kept my passion for marketing and branding with me as I jumped into and pivoted into wellness. And so now I have an online social sales business in the online wellness space. And I also help coach social sellers, network marketers, um, on personal branding and magnetic marketing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's what really drew me to you is I feel like that's such a missing piece in the social selling realm because
Yeah.
we have everything that our company is telling us to do and our
Yeah.
uplines, and we have ways that things have always been done.
Right.
But as the social media is getting more and more social sellers on it,
Right.
finding your brand and your magnetic marketing is really going to set you apart.
So true.
So tell me how did you start? Was it always kind of you did both, like your
Yeah.
social selling business and the coaching, or what did that look like?
Yeah. So I'll tell you that it's so fun as you look back, especially as women, and we go through all of these seasons in our lives, right? And so if you had told me before I had kids that I would have stopped working full time in public relations, I would have said, "You're crazy. It's
Yeah.
never going to happen. I love what I do. I'm really good at it. I'm never going to stop." And then I had kids, and all of us, my husband, we both were working these high intensive jobs in New York City.
Mhm.
And it wasn't working
Yeah.
anymore. And working for clients and other people, and it was an agency business, it was not working. I wasn't doing anything well. I hit a point where I wasn't doing anything well anymore. And I just decided I was going to just stop for a period of time and recalibrate and just spend time with my kids. And so I did that. And it was some of the most rewarding years of my life, being home with them, being able to volunteer, do all of the things.
Right.
And yet I still always missed having something that was mine, that
Yeah.
was my own thing. And I think a lot of women can relate to this. I think there's a lot of women who just really want to be home with their babies. I think there's a lot of women who know that they want to stay in the workplace. And I think then there's the rest of us that are like, can't I figure out a way to do both? Isn't there a way?
Yes.
And yeah. And so that's what I've always been really into health and wellness. And so I went back and got recertified as a personal trainer, which is what I did kind of in my early 20s.
Mhm.
And that led me down the path. So I started to just follow my passions, right? So that led me to becoming a wellness coach. And then that's when that's when I really started to look at doing a direct sales type of business. Before then, I had never really looked at it, but I found a company where I loved the products. And so this is where I think it's really interesting. I found a company where I loved the products. I knew it made sense for me. It could make sense for other people. And so I just kind of wandered into it. Right. Which I think is how a lot of people start, at least their first network marketing company, is they kind of wander in and like, oh, let's see how this goes. And I had in that company, I've since switched to another company, but that company, I had a lot of early success. And people would say, oh, it's because you have a wellness background. And I would always say, no, it's because I have a marketing background. That's why I have so much success. Yeah, I have some credibility as as a wellness professional, but it's my understanding of how people think and how intentionally showing up in a certain way. And so as I've continued to grow bigger and bigger teams and lead more and more women, that's when I started to see a need, because most people don't come from a marketing background, right? So most people kind of back in, just like I just said, they, were doing something else. They found something they loved. They're like, I could do this. I could share this with some people. And to your point, the way the business used to be done is very different than how it's being done now. And it really is, understanding best practices, but it's a real personal journey because people are buying from you. And that's the beauty of social selling. But it really is. I just wanted to help more women, and men too, but I really care about women, help more women feel more authentic and more intentional and simplify the whole thing. So I just, that's kind of how I got to where I was. And then I thought, well, as long as I'm coaching this stuff for my own team, let me create some courses that would be useful to a lot of people. It sounds like this is a lot, like you do similar type of things. Yeah. I really felt like this is where we have a lot in common. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. And I never really realized that I was even building a brand when I very first started in network marketing. I just was posting naturally about the things that I was really passionate about.
Right.
So for our women who are listening and they're just getting started, or they're like, I don't have a brand, like, like, where can they get started?
Yeah. Yeah. I think this is the most fun part because I'm sure this is what you did. And for some people, this process is super intuitive. And they know who they are. They know what they like. They know what they're about. They've got clarity. And that's the first step. And I really, really feel, I believe very strongly that you should start with what brings you alive. Like, what are the things that you could talk about for hours? What are the things that people naturally ask you about? What are the things that really light you up? And I'll tell you what, if your products don't fall into that category, you got to go look for a different company to line up with, because they really should be. It's the beauty of this business. It's like, go find some products that you're like really nuts about. Right.
Yes.
And so once you do that, then you start to have a sense of understanding who you are and what value you bring to the table. And if you feel like I don't have anything to add, first of all, it's not true. That's just a story you're telling yourself, because you totally do. And if there's things that you're passionate about that you want to learn more about, that's also part of what you can bring people on the journey of that, right? So many people are so good at sharing their health journey, their weight loss journey, their fitness journey. Like, you can bring people along on the ride. You don't have to be an expert. You just have to be adding value. And so that's kind of step one. And then step two, and I'm sure you'll agree with this, and this is where I think a lot of people get tripped up, is you want to get super clear on who your target ideal customer is. And I think people are really scared to do this, because they think if they get super specific, they're going to miss out on an opportunity, right? If they say, like, for me, if I say I really want to help women who are in perimenopause and menopause, right? Because that's the stage of life I'm in. And I say, well, I don't want to miss moms who just had babies. If you're talking to everyone, you're talking to no one. And you can still, what I love about that is there's some universal messages that will relate to everyone, but the clearer you get, the easier it becomes to have a voice on social media that's intentional. Because if you're just throwing a bunch of stuff up and hoping it works, it's frustrating.
You've said intentional a couple of times.
Yeah.
I love that word, because I think that is one of the biggest things holding women back in network marketing, especially, is a lot of times it's women who are also working a full-time job. So they're like, I have to put up a post today. And so I'm just going to post this thing. And it's not talking to their ideal audience. And it's not intentional with anything, to do with anything, honestly. I mean, and I've been guilty of that as well.
Yeah.
I still sometimes will do that, and I'm like, man, why did I post that?
Right. But you have the insight to be able to see that. And I think, listen, you're right. I mean, we see someone else post something, it worked for them, like, let's give it a try. Maybe it'll work for me. And you post it. And that's like, I call that posting and praying, right? The post and pray strategy. And it's a lot of shots in the dark. And so when I talk to people about their social media strategy and they say, well, I want to gain more followers. And I say, okay, well, who? Who do you want to gain? And what are you telling them that would make them want to follow you? And that's where you see the deer in the headlights. And I think it really is like it really is just a fear of having the courage to get specific and just going for it. Because once you do that, you find your people. Like you and I found each other, right? Because we are doing something very similar on here. And so you find your people. And so if you just get intentional, you're going to find your people. And then, as you know, on social media, there's so many ways to find the people, but you have to know who you're trying to find. And then all of it becomes easier.
Yeah, the narrowing down my ideal client, I did a lot of work on that last summer in a group I was in,
Yeah.
was a huge shift for me because,
Yeah.
my products, I've done several different companies as well, but I'm always like, well, anyone can wear nail polish strips or anyone can wear
Right.
clothes,
Right.
and then my posts weren't attracting people to me. But once I
Right.
narrowed that down, I had people in my inbox asking how they could join my team or how they could
Ah.
use my products. And I'm like, yes,
Yeah, there we go.
yes.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. If you're talking to everyone, you're talking to no one. And I will say, as a marketer, if I had ever gone into a new business presentation without having clearly defined the avatar, they would have laughed me out of the room. I mean, every brand in the world has very specific avatars for every activity that they do. Even some of the hugest ones, that person has a name, an age, an occupation. Like they narrow it down, and so if it's good enough for I used to be a brand ambassador for Lululemon. I'm still a legacy ambassador, but I was a brand ambassador for them here in New York City. And they would talk about their avatar by name all the time. And she was younger than I was. So this is the beauty of this, right? So I wasn't the exact avatar, but I was still like hit the key points in a number of ways, which is why I was an ambassador. So just because you're talking to one kind of person doesn't mean that there isn't universal truths that is going to connect with other people, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. And that's why when I was looking at my team before, my avatar was a teacher.
Yeah.
And I would say probably almost half the women on my team were teachers. But then there were the other half who weren't.
Right.
But I was still, they were just my content wasn't necessarily turning them off. It was
That's
still
right.
attracting them, but my focus was the women who were teachers.
Right. And so here's what I'll say. This is where I get into the energy and the idea of magnetic marketing. You're telling the universe, I'm a big on thing and in the universe and energy. You're telling the universe this. I want something like this. And anyone that matches that vibe is going to fall in because you've put the vibe out. It's not saying, well, Lindsay's 33 and I said, I wanted a Lucy and she was 37. So it's not going to work. It's going to be fine.
I love
As right
that.
as right as long as the energy, and we know, like, you, as soon as you meet someone, when the energy matches. And so the clearer you get on, like, I'm looking for you, the people who are that person are going to find you, and boom, there they are.
I love it. Tracey, you're
Yeah.
totally my people.
Yeah.
You're talking about the universe and energy, and
Uh,
I'm like, "Yes." Okay, so for people who maybe are not quite there yet,
yeah.
what exactly do you mean by magnetic marketing?
Yeah. So here's and I'm going to do this visually, but I'll tell everyone to do it at home. So if you go through that exercise, right? You go through the exercise of figuring out your strength. So I'm in one hand, I'm making a circle, and that's like all my passions and interests. And then in the other circle is your avatar and all of their desires and needs and wants. When you cross them, the overlap between the two is where the magnet is, right? So there's things about you that aren't really relevant to things about your avatar. But the things that really overlap and connect are where the magnet happens. And so that's the attraction. And I say this all the time. And this is where I think people need to understand the idea of the random posts don't help, because everything we do has an energy to it. And it's either pulling people towards us or pushing people away from us. I don't think there's a neutral territory. I think neutral is negative, right? So if people, right, because either you want them pulling towards you or they're not. They're either coming towards you or they're not. And um, posting things without really thinking through why, what's the goal, what other things can I add to this that add some value, is a lost opportunity, and you miss the opportunity to pull someone towards you. So that's really, I really feel like, a lot of people talk about attraction marketing and it's a tool to get people to respond. But I think the idea of magnetic marketing is saying, I'm the magnet, right? We're the magnet. As social sellers, we are the magnet. So then we just need to really get clear and say, okay, what do I want to attract to me?
I love that. I love that visual so much. And I really love too when you were talking about I meant to say this before, but then I got excited when you were talking about the universe. When you pointed out that all the major companies have an avatar,
Yeah.
and that's where we get to be like, okay, we're actually treating our business like a
Mm.
business, like
Mm-hmm.
it is a Fortune 500 company, right?
Yes.
Because until we get to that mindset,
Yeah.
think of the people you're attracting to you, think of what
That's
you
right. Right. If you're saying, well, I don't know, I'll see if this works out. We'll see how it goes. I'll give it a try. That's basically the energy you're putting out. Right. You're putting out to the universe. Well, she doesn't know. We don't know. Right. Like you've got to decide. And I agree. So as we're doing this, it's like right to the holiday season. We just had this conversation with our team. Treat this like a business, right? You're open for business. It's the holidays. Do you think that like Kohl's decides that they're going to stop sending messages to people? No, they are sending messages twice a day until the sales are over. Really, like just right. Put your boss hat on and go run your business.
Yeah, I love that
Yeah.
so much. Okay, so as you're sitting down, what does your content planning look like? Do you do it, months in advance, a week in advance, a day in
Yeah.
advance? What does your Tracey's content planning look like?
Yeah. So I've got big and small. So I just started my podcast, which I'd love to have you on. I've just launched my third one will go out this week.
Yay!
Um,
Girl, I'd
and
love to be on it.
so I've started to build a macro strategy. So I've got my blog and my podcast that leads into content on social, right? So they're kind of like the big rocks, right? So I kind of placehold those. And then I really try to work a month in advance, but I leave a lot of wiggle room for inspiration and things to post. And I really do try to leave a lot of wiggle room inside my stories to be super authentic and, timely. So I try to block a bunch of big things. I also always I was just teaching this in our course this week, Lindsay. I always try to look at, and I would suggest this for everyone, looking at how to repurpose, even if you're not doing a podcast like Lindsay and I are, look at how you can take one idea of a post and turn it into a few ideas. So the more sophisticated you get, the more at the very least, every post should become part of your story, right? And could you take a post and do a live on it? Could you take a live and then turn that into a carousel? Could you take a piece of your live and turn it into a reel? Like figure out how to make your content live another day. Is only a fraction of people ever see anything we post anyway. So, and I think that gives, like, if you look at how to give more life to every single thing you do, you cut your work in half and then you can content it out. So I am a big fan of Planoly. That's where I
Okay.
place hold things.
Okay.
And I'm a big fan of repost on Instagram to save content that I want to use as inspiration later. Those are
Okay.
the big ones. Yeah.
Okay. Those are
It's
great
kind of
tools.
like a little brain dump on that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and repurposing is so empowering for your business
Yes.
as well, because
Yes.
that you get so much more time back. And I mean, I even get in my head about posting the same things over again, especially
I
when I'm
know.
in the launch mode.
Yeah.
And my coach was just saying, she's like, that's just a thought. Like, you need to,
Yeah.
like, people
Yeah.
aren't seeing it all the time, like you think they are. And I'm like, I know.
Yeah. They're not thinking about it at all. They're
Mhm.
thinking about themselves. They're not thinking about us at all.
100%.
And I'll tell you, as we're saying this, I mean, what would really be brilliant is if you've got a great post right now, just go save it. Like, go put it in, if you're using a calendaring app, go put it back in the calendar for 6 months from now and just put it in there as a placeholder. Great ideas. I mean, how many of us share quotes that are 30 years old? I mean, good content is always a good idea. And I'm a big fan of reposting other great content. I really don't think I think, again, a lot of social sellers would trip themselves up as they look at other people on Instagram and think, well, I need to create a brand where I'm creating all of this value and I'm delivering all this insight. No, you just need to be delivering value. It doesn't actually have to be yours. If it is, great, but you just need to be a place where people say, hey, oh, when I go on Lindsay's site, I want to say, I want to follow her because that's good stuff. So,
Yeah, I
yeah,
love 100%. And that's so smart because a lot of times those people will reshare or will comment on that. That's why for my podcast, I say all the time, like, screenshot this, share it in your stories, tag me in it, and I will
right,
reshare it to my audience
right.
because I appreciate that. That's that appreciation for getting that free visibility out. So
That's right.
yeah, people love that. People love the
Mhm.
for
They do
sure.
love the repost. Yes.
So are you
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
an Instagram gal than a Facebook gal?
I'm both. I'm
Okay.
I'm both. Yeah, I'm both. I find that for the most part, Facebook is it's not as big of a growth platform, but I have deeper connections to the people on that platform. So but I find I love Instagram because it is such a great way to meet awesome people. And I find every day I'm meeting a new person that I find super, super interesting. And I love expanding my network. So it's just brilliant. It's brilliant for that.
I love that. And speaking of expanding your network, you said
Yeah.
you were starting a podcast.
Yeah.
Why did you decide to start a podcast? And what's that look like?
So I am somebody who does a lot of lives. I love doing live and coaching and training on a number of things on live. And so it felt like I was able to use a platform like this where I can record and save that as a YouTube video and then turn that into the podcast. And I just loved that. And once I started to realize that the podcast was really just a place for me to share, and I stopped overthinking like that it needed to look perfect and I needed to, get it all right. I really just got excited about it. So as I was looking for a place to kind of land my content, I loved the podcast because the podcast can, as you know, can turn into the blog. And so it just became a place that I really just got excited about. And I'm having a lot of fun just getting in there and sharing. I really wanted a forum where people could go back and tap back into some useful information.
Yeah. And podcast, it's evergreen like forever. As
Yes.
you're paying for your host site, or maybe you're even on a free hosting site,
Right.
um, it's up there forever. And it's
Yeah.
SEO.
Yep.
And yeah, I love that. I think podcasting, I don't have the stats in front of me, but I heard some stats about how it keeps growing.
Yeah.
And the amount of ad spend that big companies are starting to put into podcast sponsorships.
Yeah.
Um, it's a really smart place to repurpose. Ladies, if you are listening
Yes.
and you like to talk.
If you like to talk and if you listen to podcasts, right? So I'm a big walker. I live in New York City. I walk all the time. And so I'm always listening to a podcast or an audiobook while I'm walking, always. And so I'm looking for someone like me. The someone like me loves to listen to podcasts on the go.
It's your
So
part of your
again,
avatar.
back to the avatar.
Yeah.
Back to the avatar. Right.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And
Mhm.
it's so smart, especially if you have all those videos, you already have so much content you can repurpose. And
Yes.
I think people think that the podcasting takes a lot of extra,
Right.
but honestly, it doesn't. Just like
No.
repurpose, a
Right.
live onto YouTube, onto Facebook, onto this. Like Tracey and I were just talking right before this about
Yeah.
because I use StreamYard for a lot of my
Right.
guest interviews, and you literally click a button, guys. It downloads it, the MP3 file. I upload it, and like we go. So
Right.
it's like a 15 extra minutes, and I've
Right.
got some really awesome ladies from my podcast who have found my podcast, all around the world that I wouldn't have found it another way. So
Right.
now, have you guested on other podcasts before?
I've guessed it on a few.
Okay.
I've guessed it on a few, which
Yeah.
has been this is just so fun
Mhm.
getting a chance to well, first of all, I love meeting other entrepreneurial women. It's just I think the best because I think for those of you who are listening, I mean, let's all just give each other a fist bump. It really is that's what I love about your podcast.
Oh, thank you.
Lindsay, I really think it's powerful because I think it is a sisterhood and it is courageous work that we often do kind of alone, right? At the end of the day, we're kind of out there by ourselves. So having a network, a sisterhood is so, so important.
Yep.
Um, and any way that I just believe in the collective womenhood. And
Yeah.
so this is really fun. Yeah,
Oh, good. I'm
do.
so glad. So, is there any last minute advice? So, this we are going to air this, I believe, the first Monday, or not first Monday, the last Monday in November.
Oh,
So
great.
we're getting ready to go into December. So, any last minute tips for our social sellers going into the holidays?
Yeah. Yeah. I think this is the first and foremost thing I would say to everyone is to remember to have fun. If you love your products, and you're excited about getting them in the hands of people for the holidays, which I certainly hope the answer to both of those questions is yes. Again, if you're not, go back to point one, reestablish your belief in your products and your business. Um, get excited about the people who are going to be interested. The people who are not interested are not the ones you want to worry about. And so often we can get so caught up in the person that says no or the person that says, please stop messaging me about this stuff. And we will let that throw us off the rails when we're really here for the people that are interested. And there's so many people that want to get deals during the holidays. So just stay in a space where you're having fun and stay in front of people.
Yes.
That would be, and do it in a way, that's fun and engaging and just have fun with it because I really this is I guess I'll say is my last thing. Find the fun because if you're not having fun, you're missing the point of all of this, which is life. And so and it's really up to us. It's usually just a mindset shift and a
Mhm.
shaking off of the stories we're telling ourselves and we can get right back into the fun.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and I find that we forget that as we start getting overwhelmed, especially right now with the holiday season and everything's coming at us from all these ways.
Yeah.
But lady,
eh,
I will guarantee you, if you show up with a smile on your face and
Yeah.
a sparkly Santa hat on, and you
Yeah.
don't care what people are thinking of you,
Right.
and you're going to bring joy to people no matter what, you will get more sales than if
You
you
it
were
it
like,
totally,
"What
totally, and I think also I'll just say this last thing, Lindsay, I think we all probably if anybody's listened to this podcast, it's you're a goal-oriented person because you self-selected into this podcast. You'll set expectations and goals for yourself, and then it's really easy to start to get down on yourself if you're not meeting your expectations, and so what I always say is set a goal and then put it aside and get to work and it will be what it is. So
Yeah,
just, go back to having fun. You're right. Nothing is more magnetic than someone who sounds like they love what they're doing. We
100%."
all want to be around those people.
Yeah. Yeah, no one wants to be hanging around with the people who are the Debbie Downers all the
Nope.
time,
Wah,
and
wah.
yes, for real. We have enough of that without having to choose
The
to be around.
world, the
Yeah,
world has way too much of that. They need people who are fun.
yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Okay, Tracey, you have given us so much goodness. Tell all of our listeners where they can connect with you, and I'll be sure, guys, to put all this in the show notes, or if you're
Yeah.
watching this on video, it'll be in the comments.
Yeah.
But where can we find you?
Yeah. So my Instagram handle is at Coach Tracey _P. And so that's probably the best way to find me is on Instagram. TraceyPonterelli.com is my website. And I just launched, so I'll make sure it's available by the time we do this. I just launched a free personal brand challenge
Ooh,
where you could go through this 3-step exercise. And so that was a live event, but I'm going to just turn it into something that anybody can just download and do. So that will be available on my
oh my
website
God.
pretty soon, and anybody can just grab that. It's a workbook. You can kind of work through your own magnetic marketing personal brand. That's free for everybody. So that
Oh
will
my
be
gosh,
there
I
as
love
well.
that. Yeah, and I'll be sure, guys, to put the direct link to that too, so you can just click and go right to that. Because like we said, branding and figuring that out will make the rest of your business so much simpler. I promise that.
Right. That's right.
All right, Tracey, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me on, Lindsay. It was so much fun.
Yes, it was. Thank you.